Yeah. Welcome back, everybody, and happy kickoff. I hope you all enjoyed the masterclass sessions. Some were a little bit longer, some were a little bit shorter. We tried to keep it interesting for everybody. If you have any questions regarding the masterclasses, let us know. But they will also be the recorded videos will also be published on YouTube, so you can watch them again if you want to. This presentation is going to be about the new season, the measurements we've come up with to co-op with the COVID-19 and all the information you need. Instead of the other presentations, mine is not pre-recorded, so this is live. So if there is any issues with audio or whatever, let us know in the chat, and then there might be a little break in between. Hopefully we're all set for now, and otherwise we can put the blame on Rob because he's behind the computer. So without further ado, I think we can start with what am I going to talk about today. Within FTC Netherlands, within the organizational board, there's been some changes, so we want to briefly highlight you to those changes. We have a general announcement to make, and then the official first update about expanding their season, and then the most interesting part and the more longer part within this presentation is our COVID-19 scenarios for the FTC upcoming season, which starts after today. A part of it might be a remote event, so we will briefly highlight how a remote event will look like, and after that we'll tell you something about team registration and if you want to organize a scrimmage or an initiative yourself. The changes within the team this year, for those that don't know, last year the FTC board consisted of myself, Roel, which you saw at the beginning with the strategic design masterclass. You saw Irene and Nicole, and Bas Komen helps us out now and then as well. But there are some changes. Roel will be starting his master's degree at the Technical University here in Eindhoven, so he'll be a little bit less active this year. Myself, I had one day a week that I could work on FTC previous season. There has been some changes in regards to that for this year, but I will remain active and help where I can and where needed, and to fill in some extra work that we need to perform. We are really happy to announce that we have Ronald Stegers joining our team. You saw him as a replacement for Kees Hoijman today, but Ronald Stegers will definitely be a great beneficial role within our team to help us out with events and all the things we need due to his experience as a veteran coach as well from other teams and having experience with organizing events as well. So that's definitely nice. And of course, we always have Nicole and Irene to fall back on, and they'll even work even harder this year to make sure that for you guys, nothing changes. Our ambition that we have as FTC Netherlands remains the same. We have one goal, and that is to grow FTC within the Netherlands. And even though we have those changes, we are focusing on that on an important part, which is that for you as a team, that won't change anything in how your season feels, etc. That's at least a goal of us. So this was just for your information side note, and now we can get to the general announcement, which is that we sadly have no field today. There were some inconveniences within the ordering process, and the shipment was delayed and not in time here today to reveal for you. So after this presentation, we'll have a small dinner break. Then the official first reveal video will be live streamed, and then after that we will get back to this live stream to answer all your questions. We already know some of the rules, so we can definitely help you out on the first hand. Although we are working on an alternative solution for you guys' teams, so all the League Meet schools will have a field available for nearby teams. if you're not within close driving distance from a league meet, we're also looking into hosting a possible event somewhere in the upcoming weeks where teams can visit a field that we have or ask questions, or maybe partially live stream as well. But whenever we have more information about that, we will let you know through Slack and our newsletter. So yeah, sorry that we tricked you with having the field, but we found out last week that it wasn't possible. So instead of a nice field surprise, we'll give you a pair of socks. For those that haven't read it yet, first officially announced, I think last week or the week before, that they are extending their entire season, which means that the first championship as well will be delayed. And for the South Champs, Houston, Texas, that's mid-July, but that's not really important for you guys, for you teams, because if you qualify within our championship, you'll be qualified for the Detroit, Michigan championship, which is planned to be happening at early August. So this is a reminder, or just a quick tip for you guys, and we also took into account these regulations with our seasons. So that brings us to the most important part of this presentation. How will your season look like during the coronavirus this year? We've come up with a couple different scenarios, and we want to bring you, we want to tell you our train of thought that we had throughout the entire process, and why we came up with the solutions we have right now. These are some slides from first officially as well. I think this is common knowledge for most of the teams right now, but this is the scale that they work their scenarios on. So on the left we have the least restrictive, so that's traditional, without coronavirus, without regulations, and on the right there is a scenario where everybody has to stay at home, remote learning is supported, and that's most restrictive, so there is no physical interaction possible, or no interaction at a location possible. And we as well expect that us, the Netherlands, will be somewhere in between, depending on the current circumstances. So we've came up with a couple scenarios in between least restrictive and most restrictive. Those were judged, this was from first, so what they did was they come up with 4 types. So they had the classroom, after school, travel and gatherings, and they come up with 5 scenarios, but we narrowed it down to 3, where basically it means that we have something that we think is most realistic and completely remote, and then some things in between. So that means that the path you will follow as a team doesn't really change a whole lot for this season. You'll still register, you will still have your meetings before events to prepare your robot, to work on your team, and eventually, depending on the scenario of when the league meet is happening, and where it's happening, and the regulations due to Corona, it could be either a physical event, or partially physical, split it, or completely remote, which I will tell you a little bit more about right now. Compared to other countries, the Netherlands is doing relatively good. Of course, there are insecurities about a possible second wave, etc. But our thoughts would be that somewhere in the beginning of 2021, we can at least host some events with regulations that are up to date with the current regulations. As I just announced, the first championship is delayed until early August, which means that if we follow that path along, it will give you teams a little bit more breathing room as well to work on your team and to work on your robot and to work on your judging and engineering notebook. So we're following the path that first has set as well. And we know that if any COVID scenarios come up to play within the Netherlands, that most of the provinces or municipalities, gemeentes, will also act locally. So that means that if there is a league meet somewhere, it might have different regulations compared to a different place in the Netherlands. So we try to work with that as well within our scenarios. But our main focus is to at least give every team that's participating the same equal opportunities to participate. So I will elaborate a little bit more on that later on. What does that mean for you guys? So these are the 3 slides that will explain how the season process for you as a team will flow. As I just said, we will be extending our season as well. Last year's season started, I think, 10 weeks after the kickoff. This year, we're planning on delaying it until February, March, which I will come up to later, but at least we're pushing it a little bit more forward. This will give your teams more time in the early phase to work, because maybe your school has different regulations compared to other teams. Maybe you cannot meet with 15 students in one room. You have to split it up, etc. So this will make it a little bit easier for you to work on the robot in the early phase. And as I just said, we'll be moving the league meets from November, December to February, April. And we're planning on having a Dutch FTC Netherlands Championship somewhere in May, June, which would also be following the guideline of early August for a first championship, if that happens. Currently, the entire season for us has been focused on the league meets. So the information I'm going to tell you about right now is focused on the league meets, not the championship yet, because we think it's quite far away, and if we come up with a scenario for the possible championship, it will be based on assumptions that we don't really know yet. So the next slides will be league meet regarding, and throughout the entire season, whenever we have more concrete ideas for the championship, I will fill it in. We'll obviously present it to all of you. First promoted, or not promoted, first has worked on a remote event option where teams can work completely remote from off their school or their home. Personally, and they have given the affiliate partners hosting the events, just as the FTC Netherlands, the option to do with it whatever they want, and they give us the freedom to organize a season which fits within the restrictions and regulations that your government or your country gives. Based on that and our experiences during normal events, we think that the interaction between teams, the social aspect, the judging, talking with each other, learning from each other, competing with each other, is definitely one of the bigger pros of FIRST, and has a positive influence on your students and your team. So that's why we said that having a completely remote event is not on our wish list. Of course, it's one of our scenarios, because it might happen and we'll be prepared for it, but we'll do our best to at least give you teams the opportunity to participate somewhere instead of your own school or garage or home. And as I said, if the circumstances don't allow it, it will be completely remote, but we'll focus on trying to be organizing physical events which are close to traditional. How would that look like? We have different scenarios planned for the league meets. We're not going to go too much into detail about the scenarios today, because they are relying on the actual game format, how the game is going to be played, and we will publish the scenarios with concrete examples of scenario 1 would be played with this type of field, this would mean for your team, for your robot, etc., to make it as clear as possible. So after the kickoff today, somewhere upcoming this week or the week after, we will publish those scenarios, and let's say 2-3 weeks before the official league meet date, which will be determined later on, I will come back to that later, we will publish what the exact scenario will be for that upcoming event. There are some things that we can say which aren't really game reliant. Having a physical event close to traditional events, we think it would be possible to have league meets with a time slot of X amount of minutes, where we have 4, 6, 8 teams, depending on those regulations, where teams can visit the school, at least be with some of the teams, not all the teams, but in a smaller group. Most likely there will be a maximum amount of team members that are allowed, so that we can make sure that it's not too crowded and we can keep all the regulations in place. And of course, we will focus on having all the events being live streamed through Twitch, and we are working on some ideas on having interaction on Slack as well next to the live stream, where, for example, we come up with a temporary channel for that league meet, and everybody can join that channel if they're watching the live stream. And then when there are questions about a specific robot or something, people at that event can help you get answers to those questions and at least be part of that event a little. Then the last slide. As I said, this year, thanks Siri, it will be 20 degrees today in Amsterdam. Depending on the time and team format, we will decide if the 4 league meets are sufficient for this season. Team registration won't be on first come, first serve basis. We have a specified time window, which I will name out later. But just register. After registering, you get an invoice which you can pay, and we're trying to give every team equal opportunities, and we're not going to cancel any teams. And depending on the regulations and the scenarios, it would mean that maybe we need 6 league meets instead of 4, or maybe we have parallel events or whatever. Those will be in those scenarios, but at least we're trying to focus on the 4 league meets. Because of delaying the season, this is against our belief of having a competitive season, which we started, I think, 2 seasons ago, where we said after kickoff we want to have a quick event, and then we have back-to-back events, and we want to keep up the competition pace, so teams go out early, maybe with not a complete finished robot, but at least they can get on a field, practice with it, and then they can progress throughout the entire season. We're still looking into possibilities and incentives for you as a team to achieve that this year as well, because right now it's September, maybe your first event is in March, and there is a huge time gap between it. And if we don't come up with scrimmages or events or live stream events where you can participate maybe remotely, you'll probably delay all your work until January, and then you're going to scratch the back of your head. Hey, we need to build something in 1 month. That's something we want to prevent, and we want to have you be as competitive as possible up until March. If you have any ideas, I'll point it out later as well, but if you want to organize something or do something in the early beginning of the season, please let us know as well. And as I just said, because of this switch and postponing or extending the entire season, the official competition dates for the league meets aren't yet determined. We're working on it right now with all the league meet partners to come up with a competition date structure. Whenever we have the dates finalized, we will let you know on Slack and a newsletter, so make sure you're signed up and registered for both of them. One thing that we try to focus on for this year is what we announced at the championship last season as well. If we have, let's say, 4 league meets, we want to have an early set of events with 2 early events and 2 later events, where every team has to compete in 2 league meets, but it has to be 1 early event and 1 late event. So that means that whenever you register, you give your preference for your first event in the first 2 events. So and then they are back to back. So 1 week of competition, and then the week after another competition, and then you have, I don't know, let's say 3 weeks, 5 weeks, and then you have another 2 events, and then you have to compete in those as well. So having the benefit of playing early will be smaller, and everybody will be facing the same type of progressed teams. So that's something we try to achieve for this year as well. If we are going to organize events from now till December, they might have components of a remote event, and some applications that are developed by First to achieve and host the remote events are going to be used this year. So I'm going to show you some information about remote events and how those would look like. Saying that, it's not our goal to have a completely remote event, but just so you know that what First meant with remote events and how they would look like. So basically, what is a remote event? As I said, for us, it's our last fallback scenario. Hopefully, we can have a close to traditional event. To support the remote event, First has been working on 2 new applications. One of them is the FTC Live in the Cloud, and the other one is the Remote Event Hub. And I will get a little bit more into detail in each of them. You as a team will be working with these 2 applications the entire season as well, even if we don't have the remote events, because it will give you the opportunity to, for example, score a practice match at your home, and it will also have rankings, and we will put the events in there. So what does that mean? The FTC Live in the Cloud, it will set up a remote event. So you have the FTC Live Cloud software. If it's a close to traditional event, we will host it through there as well. So this is more for us instead of the scoring application we had last year. It's a cloud-based scoring system, which we will use for our official events, but it's also available for you as a team. If you're registered with US First as well, but it will be in our registration flow. So yes, you will be registered, and yes, you can use this software. And this will allow you as a team to score during a remote event, but it will most importantly mean that you can use it to practice anytime at home. Last year we had the tablets for referees nearing a competition field, and it was difficult for teams at home to copy that system and to copy the scoring platform. But this year is really easy for yourself to work on the FTC Live in the Cloud, and when you're practicing at home, count the scores as well. So that's a nice benefit for you guys. So you can practice the scoring and the robot gameplay at any time. The Remote Event Hub, it will be mainly used as a linkage between the scoring software and the event, which will show match results and the judged awards. So if they're after the judging, the teams that receive an award will all be demonstrated over there, including the ranking and standings. That's all we have right now on information that we can share. Hopefully, most likely after the kickoff, we know a little bit more as well, and otherwise very soon. So at least stay tuned for any updates and visuals, and whenever First publishes something about it, we'll make sure that you guys are up to date as well. Then for the judging, Nicole and Irene already answered some questions. Molly gave a presentation about it, but for those that missed the masterclass, I have a couple quick points that I want to point out. And whenever we have a completely remote event, which is our fallback scenario, it would look like a process that very closely mirrors the traditional event judging as much as possible, which would mean that the teams will be scheduled for a judging session. You'll be allowed to sign in from one computer with your entire team, but if it's completely remote, most likely all the team members are at their own home. You would have the ability for everybody to sign in on the platform, give a presentation over there, and then it will be a 5-minute team presentation followed by a 10-minute Q&A from the judges over there. And if your video connection isn't stable, etc., throughout those 5 minutes, there is some extra time reserved to allow you have a proper connection. But at least if this is going to happen, we'll definitely post a little bit more information. If the remote event judging is going to happen, there are a couple things you have to share before the presentation, which are 4 pieces. First of all, the engineering notebook, portfolio, what the exact portfolio would look like and what the requirements for it will be in Game Manual 2 most likely on Chapter 9. So definitely give it a good read. You would have to hand in your control award submission, team summary as a description of your team, and if you want to receive feedback from judges, which is a new thing this year, you can hand in your judging feedback request form. But all these types of information, definitely give it a good read throughout the game manual, and along the way we will post more information about it as well. But there are some important changes, so if you have been competing last year or previous seasons, definitely look into the judging part and all the changes that have been happening this season. What does a remote event competition-wise look like, robot-wise, field-wise? Ultimate goal is designed to be able to play solo as well. So the game usually is being played with 2 against 2, but this game is designed to be played solo at your place at home as well, in your robot or lab area, by using around 2/3 of the field border and a half set of game pieces and game elements. Due to that, the rankings and penalty points and how those points are distributed, this is for rookie teams probably a little bit complicated information, but for the more experienced teams, the standings aren't based anymore on the win-loss record of the opposing versus the opposing alliance, and the penalties that you will score will deduct from the team that makes the penalty. So instead of previous seasons you made a penalty and then it would add up to the score of the opponents, this year it will deduct from your own score, but you cannot go below 0. And due to the fact having remote events, it doesn't mean that we have an accurate live standing of all the scores, because some teams might be delayed with handing in their scores, etc. So if there would be a complete remote event, we will publish the leaderboard and the rankings afterwards, and not at the event itself. As I said, registered teams will be provided access to the Live Cloud software, which you can use as a practice within practice modes. Whenever you are scheduled for a remote event window, it's an option you select within the scoring software, and then you can record your scoring results. You can take a video of it with your phone, and then you can upload it to the hub as well, to make sure that the scores you fill in are actually accurate. And as I say that, this is an opportunity for you guys, teams, to act upon the first core values, which is one of the most important ones, is graceful professionalism, and that's a highly reliant value that we'll be relying teams on to make sure that they score their scoring accurately and honestly. So please follow the rules. If it's a remote event, a coach, a team member, or an adult familiar with the game rules can be allowed to record the official match scores. That's it for the team season registration, team season competition format. So as I said, to summarize, we'll be focusing on close to traditional events with a smaller amount of teams within a time slot. Depending on the game, we will publish different scenarios, and we'll make a decision 2 weeks before the league meet on what type of scenario will be played during the league meet itself. Then onwards to the registration. There were some questions in the Q&A already today. The registration will be opening on the 1st of October, and it will be closing at the 19th of October. So you have approximately 2 weeks to register. After registration, an invoice will be sent to your team, to the details you've signed up, for 275 euros. You can pay it afterwards or within the registration window. So no rush this year, but at least, of course, you have to pay before competing. The registration will be taking place on the FTC Netherlands website again. So it's ftcnetherlands.eu. Complete registration details and outline will be published in a newsletter and Slack as well, because we're finalizing some tweaks and updates with the website to prepare for this season. And as I said, we want to give everyone equal opportunities in participating, and the registration isn't that we say we have space for 50 teams and it's a first come first serve. No, everybody can register, and we'll try to come up with the best fitted solution for every team. Then in regards to scrimmage events and team initiatives, as I said, we're delaying the event where the first event probably will be in February, March. That means that we have a lot of time between September and March that we can host interesting events. If you are a school that is planning on hosting a league meet, so you already have a field, maybe you're going to order your field yourself, maybe you're going to build a field yourself, and you want to accommodate the resources you have with different teams, please let us know. We as well have a complete field beside league meet partners that we can borrow to you for that specific event that you want to organize. And we've been planning this season for quite a long time, so we know we have different scenarios in regards to COVID-19. And if you have the interest in organizing something but don't know how, please reach out to us, because we want to help you, and we already have a little bit of experience on how to handle with it. And of course, if you are going to host a league meet and you want to do an extra event or whatever, you're free to host every event you want, but make sure that at least we as FTC Netherlands are up to date with the information and that we're informed. So if you're hosting something and you don't need our help, we at least want to know what your regulations will be and when you are hosting an event, so we can make sure that everything fits accordingly to the first rules and to our rules as well, because the event you will be hosting will be under the First and FTC brand. And if something happens, we might be responsible for it as well, but we just want to make sure that there are plenty of events for every team in a proper manner. So if you're interested, send an email to info@ftcnetherlands.eu if you're interested in organizing something or you need our help. Then lastly, we already talked about it quite a lot today, and every now and then we send out a newsletter with important information, updates, registration info, specific info for league meets, for the events you're competing with. So make sure you're signed up with the newsletter. The newsletter is quite easy on our website, ftcnetherlands.eu. On the bottom there is a sign up tile where you can fill in your email address and you'll be signed up automatically to the newsletter. We highly recommend it. And on the website there is a link as well where you can join the FTC Netherlands Slack community. If it doesn't work or you cannot get it to work, send us an email and we can help you out registering on Slack. Previous seasons, teams thought, oh, we'll put 1 or 2 team members or just our coach in Slack, but that's not the main goal. We want everybody in the entire FTC community in the Netherlands, or at least competing teams from all of Europe that compete in the Netherlands within Slack. What is Slack? For those that don't know, as I said earlier, it's a match. It looks like Teams and Discord. Basically, it's a communication platform with different channels. So, for example, as you see on the slide, we have a judge channel, hardware channel, outreach channel, software channel, general announcements that we make from the FTC Netherlands account. If you want to have tips and tricks from 3D CAD and SolidWorks or whatever program you use to design your robot, you can ask all your questions in there. And I took an example from last week from team Pretty Smart Robotics, for example, they had a question about Omni wheels. They posted it in a channel, and I think I was a little late to the party. I checked the message 10 minutes after they asked the question, and it was already full of responses from other teams helping out to give Pretty Smart Robotics the best parts they needed, and that's how it works within Slack. So I highly recommend for you, for your entire team, for everybody in your team to join the Slack, and especially in this season where maybe we don't see each other as often or as much. Staying connected on platforms as this will really help your team to grow and to learn all the things you need throughout the entire season. If you want any more info, as I said, info@ftcnetherlands.eu. That was my presentation. Now I'll take any of your questions, and after we answered all the questions, we will be back after the official kickoff review video. I don't know if there are any questions.
There are two.
Two?
Yeah, someone asked, can we go to other countries? But like, that depends on the regulations, I guess.
Yeah, so in Europe or whatever country, there will be hosted events as well. But it's difficult for us to say if you can go over there. You have to look into it yourself, and it's based on the regulations as well. So I definitely, if you're interested in competing in a foreign country, let us know, and then we can send you information that we have if you have that ambition.
Yeah, the other one Rob already answered. Someone asked, how do you join the Slack, and Rob sent the link.
Okay, and another question was on how to join the Slack platform, which I also covered 5 minutes ago, or 1 minute ago. Any other questions?
Not on Twitch.
Okay, and the official stream starts at 6? Right?
Yeah, it's not long.
Yeah, it starts at 6.
Yeah. So that's it for now. There was one question after the last masterclass in regards to costs and parts, etc. It was too quick of a rush to put out information right now to make sure that it's adequate and fulfilling the needs you have right now. If you have any questions in regards to cost, what parts should I buy? Of course, first ask your question on Slack, and if you need any help with it or an estimate or whatever, you can also send us an email, and then we'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you have any other questions, we'll be back after the official first live stream, which at the top of my head, it starts around 6. After the video, the game has been revealed, we'll be live again on this Twitch channel to answer your questions in regards to the season and the field. So make sure you watch it and come up with your presentations or your questions. That's it for now. Thanks everybody. Have fun with the kickoff today, and I hope to see you very soon. But at least we'll be back tonight with answering the Q&A for the field.